What's gone wrong with social media, and can it be fixed? A gunman broadcast live footage on Facebook of an attack he committed at a mosque in the city of Christchurch, New Zealand. His actions reflected the carnage played out in video games. Facebook and other social media platforms took several hours to block the footage. They're being criticised for failing in their responsibility to limit hate speech and terrorist content. But can this be done while still respecting privacy and freedom of expression? The New Zealand massacre was not the first internet broadcast of a violent crime. It was just one more example of the challenge of preventing unacceptable footage from spreading on social media sites. In the New Zealand incident, the live stream continued on Facebook for 17 minutes, and Facebook only removed the stream after being alerted by New Zealand police. Governments have used the same systems to monitor their own people. The Chinese government uses software that monitors and censors certain anti-government websites. Journalists and human rights defenders from Bahrain to Morocco have their phones tapped and emails read by security services. Facebook takes down wall posts after states complain of subversive material. Google hands over user data to law enforcement authorities, including IP addresses, location data, and records of communications. The US government also conducts mass surveillance of foreign phone and internet users. What is the right balance between limiting live streaming and allowing freedom of expression? And how should the law be applied against those who don't prevent unacceptable content from being broadcast on social media? Simple questions with important answers. How much responsibility do social media platforms have to prevent the live broadcast of terrorism? We asked the public here in London. This is what they said.
I think no country should experience this, and especially the Muslim community isn't feeling safe where they should feel safe where they go to prayer. I think it's important.
I think it's their responsibility to have a bit more control on not type of Big Brother control, but to have some censorship and check the content that are being posted and submitted.
It's a difficult thing, balancing free speech, but I think there clearly does need to be some kind of control over what is available. There needs to be some kind of maybe self-censoring, I don't know.
It's just going to spark up a lot of, whatever, the issues that we see around us. I think they should limit it to how much should be streamed.
If you have a responsibility to deliver a service, you've got to be very mindful how you deliver the service. So it is not a service just for the sake of service, but it's service for the sake of delivering a value, a social responsibility to clients that matters. So in that regard, I would argue they have a role, but they have a bigger role these days to be very responsible in terms of what they share and how they share.
There should be some kind of fine or impact that should go back to the platform that's allowing this stuff to be shown. So yeah, I do think so.
I do, although I think the monitoring and actually automated picking up of that is probably way more complicated than people assume. So I think over time they should be accountable for it.
Social media platforms, especially Facebook, they have a huge responsibility in this terrorist attack, because if you go by the history of this event, the terrorist, he used Facebook to, first of all, if you see his timeline, he used Facebook to get manipulated thanks to fake news. So after that, he used Facebook's live stream option to put the video up for millions of people to watch, while Facebook did not do anything. So it's completely, there is someone has to be accountable, and that's Facebook and social media like Twitter, and then somehow YouTube as well.
This is the $6 million question, or in terms of the value on these social media companies, perhaps the $6 trillion question. We need to determine in terms of what needs to be done in terms of regulating the social media environment. And different people have different opinions. So we've had Jacinda Ardern coming out with very strong vocal opinions about the social media companies and their lack of responsibility that they're taking in terms of monitoring what's being published on their platforms. And she's saying they are not postmen, but they are publishers. Whereas for many years, these platforms have been saying, we're just the equivalent of a postal worker. We deliver a letter from place A to place B, but we don't hold the responsibility in terms of what is actually inside those letters. So this is the issue that we now need to look into.
If a social media platform can't instantly stop a live broadcast and the sharing of illegal activities, should that service be banned? The public told us their views.
I think there should be restrictions on what you share on social media, especially on something so horrible that just happened. I think it's quite important for people to understand what they're streaming and what they're putting out, and to understand what they're actually putting out. So, oh, it's just another post, or it's just another thing where it actually can affect and hurt people quite severely.
I think it's them to set the limits a little bit. There's some safeguard a little bit.
I don't know about sanction. There should be some kind of regulation, which I suppose in turn must mean some kind of sanction. Yes, I don't think it can be allowed to go on unfettered.
It does require the need for more state intervention and more regulation to steer this important ship, not as a consequence of destroying the Internet of Things, because we do need digital technology to perform and do what is right.
I think if you weigh up the morality of it, perhaps of what could be live broadcasted and the ability to shut it down and what could be seen, I think potentially yes, it could be an answer to that problem, yeah.
I think there should be some sort of regulation in like private sacred places.
I think that would limit an awful lot of what the whole platform's for. Certainly you could have it so that if it's reported, then it's shut down on the basis of, it's reported and then it's opened up again if it isn't something negative. But there are all sorts of ways you could handle it.
Facebook recently commented on the terrorist attack in New Zealand, and they said they will do something about misuse of their live stream technology. So they didn't make it clear what they will do, but they are standing for it now. But there should be a temporary ban, I suppose, in this regard, because if you see Facebook, in last year, Facebook was hacked, and hackers used a view as a feature of Facebook to exploit the flaw and hack millions of accounts. That feature is still banned all over the world. So when they can ban view as feature, they can temporarily, not permanently, they can temporarily ban this feature as well. And until they sort out. And sorting out is not that difficult as far as my personal opinion is concerned, because they can use artificial intelligence. That's one thing. That's basically the main thing they can use right now. They're already using it in detecting copyright content on their platforms. They're using the same technology. Even the police and the security agencies are using the same technology. They can make some algorithms, and so I think artificial intelligence can do a lot of good work in this regards.
The likes of Facebook and Google have got their best computer scientists and mathematicians working on building artificial intelligence technologies to be able to determine what's being published and then to be able to regulate anything that is untowards. However, it's an extremely difficult issue if you think about what was posted in the case of, for example, the New Zealand shooting. It's very difficult for algorithms to be able to look at what's being published and determine if it's legitimate or illegitimate. So this is something that they could only act on retrospectively as it currently stands on the whole. And in the case of Facebook, they've come out with a report saying that it was only 12 minutes after the video was posted that it was reported to them, and they took very fast action. As far as their report is concerned, only 200 people saw the live video, and only 4,000 people saw it in total before the video was removed from their platform.
In the public's opinion, would banning live streaming challenge the freedom of the press or freedom of public expression?
It might do. I think a lot of people like freedom of speech, and it might kind of not incorporate. People might say, well, if we're not allowed to do this, then what else are you going to restrict us from?
No, then it would be contradictory to what our society is fighting for, the freedom of speech.
I think it probably would, but again, it's a very difficult balance. I think that free speech is obviously essential, but equally, free speech which spreads or disseminates lies, what are lies, propaganda, it's a very difficult balance, but something has to be done to balance it out, yes.
In the event of what happened in New Zealand, there's nothing to filter or watch or whatever. It's just black and white, isn't it? It's what you see, what you get. But that's in itself, just talking about it is going to spark up a lot of problems, let alone streaming it.
Policymakers, when they go to Parliament or they go into legislation, they get voted in on a ticket. And so if I read the mood of the public today, a lot of the people are saying to people in Parliament, in legislators, legislate to protect us. That's your mandate. And so I think as long as the public defines the starting points and the end points, I think it will work. It will never be to the risk of destroying business.
That's possible, yeah. There's always a trade-off in terms of what you can be restricted as an individual or as a group of individuals. So there could be a trade-off in terms of price of freedom, but it depends if you weigh that up in terms of safety of the masses at the same time.
I think it's all subjective. Like, it can't be one rule for one rule for all. So there needs to be some sort of filter these type of situations.
It was a facility that was never there a year ago or 2 years ago. So what we're doing is creating tools that nobody understands their impact. So it's inevitable that when you introduce a new thing into society, its positive and negative impacts aren't understood. So once you do understand them, you have to manage them and control them.
Banning this kind of service, I think that's against our freedom of expression. It definitely is. But freedom comes with responsibility. Users need to report that such kind of content. If they see, for example, there was a suicide on using the live stream, no one was reporting it to police. They have to do it. That's our responsibility. But banning it is not a good thing, because news organizations like Press TV, it highly depends on social media to give the alternative narrative of the situation, you know. So also universities, seminars, businesses, they use live streaming services to promote their business. And also you see if there are many incidents involving police brutality. So victims have used live stream to save their lives, I must say. And police can use the same service to put their narrative in front of the authorities, you know. So banning it is not a good thing, first of all. And then the responsibility is the main thing, because if we get used to these attacks being live streamed, people will stop reporting it, and it will become just another day in our world. So you don't want terrorist attack to be just another day.
In June 2017, the Chinese government banned live streaming on 3 of the biggest online media platforms, such as Weibo, which is their equivalent of Twitter. And this had a huge impact. Now, in terms of the United Kingdom, the USA and other Western democracies, this is something that they have been frowning upon doing, because live streaming ultimately gives people, the average member of the public, the means to get their message out that in a manner that has never been available to the public before. However, this is something that then also gives the likes of the New Zealand shooter the means to disseminate messages which are in some cases considered to be revolting and very damaging to society.
Let's look at the facts. Facebook employs 30,000 staff to respond to reports of offensive content, but violent crimes continue to be live streamed. When a father in Thailand in 2017 broadcast himself killing his daughter on Facebook, the number of views before Facebook removed the video was 370,000. Facebook has about 2.3 billion monthly users around the world.
Should those who share and help spread illegal content be prosecuted, even if they do so by accident?
I think some action should be taken, especially if it's inappropriate, because people shouldn't be seeing that on their social media, and it's not really appropriate.
If I have a picture, I have a video of someone being slaughtered, his head cut off, and I share it, it means that I kind of I spread it, and then I should have some sense of responsibility. You cannot just do things like whatever, because it can affect other people.
Well, I think the new EU regulations are going to address that about users uploading, and it will apply here even after we leave the EU, although we can subsequently change it, so I gather. But I think that there has to be some kind of filter put in place, which is what the EU proposes.
The first responsibility goes to, obviously, the whoever's in charge of, I don't know where it was posted first, was it YouTube? I think it was. So whoever manages that mainstream should be held responsible, I suppose.
The first and important point is regulation. The need for the state to put in place regulations and probably also penalties, when people do err on the other side, the point that you're raising. But I'm not one very much for punitive measures. One has to educate the public and make them aware, explain to them the benefits of why they should not do it, and how they themselves benefit. So I'm more on the side of articulating the benefits of behavior change than penalizing the public. But yes, consequences must be there in cases where the extreme cases, in that matter, yeah.
I don't know. It's difficult to really answer that question, to be honest, because of the spectrum of morality that falls under.
I think it's a no-brainer. You should be punished for sharing that. Anyone that shared it, really, whether good or bad.
If it's criminal to say it to someone's face, it's criminal to say it on video. So certainly whatever applies. I do worry about this kind of draconian society that we're starting to formulate because of social media. It's getting much more aggressive and much more reactionary. But that said, stuff like that, obviously, is inexcusable. I think people don't understand the implications of sharing. So I certainly would worry that people who just share or refer to things that somehow they're implicated, I would be concerned about that.
It depends who is sharing, because we have kids unwillingly share the content. That happened in New Zealand as well, and they're facing long time jail term right now. But if someone is sharing that just to promote hate and just to make fun out of it, willingly, that should be prosecuted. And authorities and social media sites should be involved in the prosecution process. But don't punish an innocent underage kid just because they share the video. Mistakes happen, but at the same time, yes, people should be prosecuted if they are sharing this content. Because once again, people will get used to it. If it's shared again and again, people will get used to it. People will watch it again and again. No one will report it because, like I said before, it's just another day then. And we don't want to be, and we don't want that.
So New Zealand has laws which has banned the dissemination of the New Zealand shooting video by Brenton Tarrant. It already has laws in place and people have already been arrested and are awaiting trial at the moment in terms of being able to determine what happens to them, whether they are fined or whether they are incarcerated. Other Western countries haven't done this as it currently stands, but this is something that has been discussed by the legislators and politicians in terms of seeing what should be done. Should people repost this video or other videos that are considered to be terrorist acts? There have been cases with ISIS videos, for example, where the social media platforms have removed them and people who have posted or reposted them have been arrested and in some cases are in prison.
We also asked the public, is it acceptable to intrude on privacy to give more personal data collection powers to intelligence agencies?
I think partly yes and partly no. I think these companies can obviously get data. It is data to them at the end of the day, but I think in the other way, I think on an image-wise on social media, it can be quite a negative effect.
No, I don't like this. I do not like this. And actually, I'd like to know how they can get a hold of my information.
I don't like the Big Brother touch one little bit. I'm not comfortable with that at all, because I don't trust intelligence agencies in the way they handle our lives.
There is a very important role that intelligence agencies play, and I'm one that strongly supports the need for that. Public, we just don't have the tools and the mechanisms to know where risk is and where risk come from. That is the role of the intelligence forces. Very credible, is to be encouraged. Obviously, with a very clear legislature and parliament that can put checks and controls on those measures. That's very important. So if you have an intelligence arm that is strong and a legislature is weak, that leaves the public very vulnerable. So I think that's the one checks and balance. And obviously, on the other hand, I do believe that we do need regulation, but regulation is a step process. It must be based on what the people say must be regulated, as opposed to what others wish for. And that, for me, is where the centre lies.
I think in terms of safety, at the moment, until perhaps there's a more mature process in technology in terms of managing what can be sent out on social media platforms.
I think the government needs to be involved. I don't think they're doing anything to stop it. So
That's not a one-line answer. I mean, the government's understanding, or the legislative understanding of things like, so GDPR is something that's been brought in that's completely not fit for purpose, and the whole digital privacy thing is misunderstood so hugely at the regulatory level that I feel like it would be much better to make it self-regulatory, so give the platforms and the industry a more collaborative way of handling these issues. I think trying to deal it at this stage while it's still forming.
First of all, giving up your privacy for security is a no-go. You should not share your data with security agencies. Thanks to Edward Snowden, we saw what NSA did with the private data of millions of people around the world. Did it stop terrorist attacks? It didn't. Did the New Zealand authorities, could they stop the terrorist attack? No, they couldn't. Even though the manifesto of that terrorist was online before the terrorist attack, could they stop it? They couldn't. So data sharing is just out of question, because security agencies, they misuse it. And individuals who have nothing to do with terrorism, no links with anything, they get affected by it. So there is no way that data should be affected. As far as cybersecurity is concerned, these security agencies have tools. They can infiltrate the terrorist network online. On Telegram, there is a big network of it. On dark web, there are places where they can infiltrate and check what's going on. And they have done it in past. They have successfully done it. They have stopped terrorist attacks. They can do that. But sharing data is a no-go. Absolutely not.
China already has a firewall around its internet, so their social media platforms and other online services are already heavily regulated. So this is just part and parcel of what people in China are used to in terms of their activities. But the live streaming activities particularly affected the younger members of the public who like to post videos about what they're doing in their everyday lives. It probably had a perspective in terms of entertainment activities, but in terms of the functioning of society, business, I don't think live streaming and the curtailment of live streaming had a marked impact.
Sometimes social media is used to share information on human rights abuses and other social issues. This can be a powerful advocacy platform, enabling social and political participation of marginalised groups and driving campaigns at national or international levels.
But social media is also a way for criminals and terrorists to promote their agendas and their law-breaking activities live to the world, as Facebook accidentally proved, despite its army of employees to manage offensive content. A lone gunman in New Zealand was able to stream his massacre for 17 full minutes. It's another disturbing example of a social media world which is apparently insufficiently monitored and out of anyone's control, even by the people who invented it.